Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the best movies of summer 2013. It was the summer it was, and now it has come to a close, and we're moving on to the fall where all the Oscar bait, and usually most of what people fill out their top 10 lists are with, and that's kind of one of the main reasons I do a list at the end of the first 4 months of the year and then at the end of the summer, because I want to highlight films that came out during these periods that will probably get lost in a top 10 list and just I don't get to talk about as much. And I feel like there are plenty of good films in every season, and it's always fun to recommend some, and I think that's the main reason I make videos, is so not only can I talk about film, but so I can tell people like, hey, this is a good movie, you should go see it. Now, these are in no particular order, really. The last one I'm almost absolutely sure will probably be in my top 10, but the other four I'm not as sure about, so, but we'll see. They could, all five could be, I don't know what the rest of the year is going to be like. You never know. Now, I'm just going to do my favorite 5 films of the summer of 2013 just to keep it distinct, but I will have runners-up and things like that after I get through these top 5. The first film I have picked in my best movies of summer 2013 is A Hijacking. A Danish cargo ship which is hijacked by Somali pirates, and then the film is half about what's going on the boat, going with the cook, who has kind of become the de facto kind of leader of the group, or at least the one the Somali pirates will talk to, and will let talk to the Danish shipping company. And the other half of the film takes place in the Danish shipping company with the CEO, who's like a tough negotiator, and he thinks he is the one who should be negotiating with these Somali pirates, even though he is told that's really not a good idea, they should bring in someone special for that, but he insists to do it because he is a very good negotiator, at least on the corporate level. He is trying to negotiate with these Somali pirates, and it goes on for months and months and months, and the film is really about the negotiations and how long these kind of hijackings can take. And it's really not about so much the hijacking itself, so much so that they don't actually show it. It's kind of withholding certain information to kind of show you how kind of drawn out these negotiations can really be between, a corporation and Somali pirates, and especially one that doesn't know what they're doing. It's psychological and like a thriller, but it's like almost emotionless, but it's very emotional at the same time, very straightforward and very gritty. Like a traditional thriller is like very much playing for your emotions and you know exactly what it's going to do. There's certain points where I don't know exactly what it's going to do. It's interesting to see a film that is almost like structured like kind of a Hollywood film. It's made in a Hollywood way, basically, but it's decided like, well, does this action sequence really matter to the story ultimately? And it's very daring, and I think a lot of directors couldn't balance that, because a lot of films who have a big action sequence, it's there to keep you engaged. The film actually really needs it. For a film that could have that and could use it to like amp up the excitement and really get you in there, is very daring, and the fact that they pulled it off shows how strong this director really is. I think that's kind of ballsier than I've seen from any action sequences, doing a film like this where you're just like, well, let's remove it, it's superfluous, the film isn't about this. Alright, now the next film was not technically released in theaters, or at least not in this country, but I kind of feel like the way distribution has changed and the way the movie business is changing, if you were made in a movie kind of format, or the structure is like a movie, and to me it was a movie, then I'm going to count it. And my next film is Beyond the Candelabra, a relationship between Liberace, played by Michael Douglas, and a young man, Scott Thorson. It's based on the novel by Scott Thorson, Beyond the Candelabra, My Life with Liberace. It's very grown up about this romance, and it's an unconventional romance, not because they're gay or the age difference, because it is kind of a sugar daddy type relationship, and that Liberace was so over the top, and this house is ridiculous, and this lifestyle is ridiculous. It's an interesting postmodern kind of way to make a movie about a celebrity, because I think a lot of the way we view films that are about celebrities, it's called Beyond the Candelabra. That sounds quite similar to Behind the Music or something like that, and that he can do it in more of an adult, journalistic, grown-up perspective rather than a salacious TV movie cash-in. I think I just bring that up because that's the genre of this type of story. is more used to. And I'm not saying Soderbergh was influenced by those, maybe he was, but this film has a really old Hollywood sense to it, like an old Hollywood fame story, like A Star is Born, or a film that actually Kirk Douglas was in, The Bad and Beautiful. It has that feel about it, that fame is fleeting, and that, you know, there will be someone else will come along and take your place. And the next film on this list is probably the closest to what a traditional summer blockbuster kind of summer movie would be, even though it's not really one of those, but it's still one of the films I like the most, and probably the one on this list that I'm most likely going to buy the day it comes out on Blu-ray, and that is The World's End. Gary King, played by Simon Pegg, who wants to get his friends back together and recreate their legendary pub crawl, which they were never really successful at. That happened in 1990, and he wants to go back with his friends to his old village where they all grew up to do the pub crawl and do 12 pubs in one night, 12 pints, and they slowly realize that everyone in their town has been replaced by robots. You look at a lot of films and they have a man-child. They're lovable, they're huggable, they're people you want to hang out with. Simon Pegg's character of Gary King is not a great guy at all. Like, he's totally messed up. He's an alcoholic. He's a screwed up addict, basically. He's not really that lovable. He has a darker edge to him. I think it's interesting that Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and Nick Frost decided to take such a different approach to the whole man-boy idea. You like Gary King, but you know he has all these problems. You know it's kind of dangerous for him to still be kind of this man-child. Simple logline, certainly. It's a sci-fi comedy, but in a lot of ways it's taking a lot of comedy ideas and doing something very different with them, because you have the man-child thing, which they're taking in a very different direction, in a much darker direction, but also the Nick Frost-Simon Pegg relationship is totally flipped in this film. Simon Pegg is basically playing who usually Nick Frost plays, and Nick Frost is playing who usually Simon Pegg plays, and they switched archetypes. It's a good way to close out the Cornetto trilogy, because if you're gonna have them do the same thing, I feel like that wouldn't have felt like much of a challenge. And this does feel like an evolution. Having all that wrapped up into one, and his quick cutting and moving all over the place. I mean, Edgar Wright, there's like a precision to him, but there's such a planned out precision that I don't see from comedy directors. Edgar Wright is almost the opposite of most comedy directors, because he seems to know exactly what he wants to do. He gets exactly the films he's referencing, and he gets the weight of all of that. And he's just a smart director. His films are like the only comedies I could say that are dense comedies. Like, if I watch World's End a year from now, there's probably a joke in there I didn't get this time. And 5 years from now, and probably 10 years from now. And I don't know anyone else who can make dense comedies. And comedy isn't easy by any means, and a dense comedy is like even harder. Edgar Wright's films really feel like directed, but in a way that's lovely and amazing. And the next film on my list is Barbarian Sound Studio. A British Foley artist or sound engineer named Gilderoy, played by Toby Jones, who is flown to Italy to work on a film called The Equestrian Vortex, which he believes to be a film about horses because it says equestrian. The film starts when he arrives at the studio and he finds out it's an Italian horror film, or a giallo. This film takes place during the 70s, and he's kind of horrified at first because he doesn't really know much about horror films. Hints at like a bit of Argento kind of Italian horror film that he's working on. Eerie, spooky, like psychological. It's a slow burn of a movie where Gilderoy, Toby Jones's character, is slowly getting into this world of both Italy, a language he doesn't understand, and a film world he doesn't understand. He's used to more working on horse documentaries. It's kind of spooky and mysterious. The film he's working on you never really see. There's a lot you don't really know for a long time, and maybe we'll never figure out really. And it reminds me of that Polanski idea where someone's alone and you're not sure, are they going insane? Are they not? Am I misinterpreting this scene? Is that me? Is that the movie? So the number one film, the film I like the most from this summer, out of all the films I saw, which was quite a lot of them, it's definitely one of the films I consider right now to be one of the best films of the year, and that was Frances Ha. Very influenced by Woody Allen's Manhattan, Raging Bull, specifically post when black and white was used by Hollywood movies. Black and white movies, not when everything was black and white. You're following this girl, Frances, played by Greta Gerwig, who's a 27-year-old dancer who's kind of trying to find her way in life. Her best friend, who she lived with, she says they're like an old married lesbian couple who never has sex anymore. and then her friend goes off and lives with somebody else in Tribeca, and which she can't afford, and starts being more serious with her boyfriend Patch. And she kind of goes on various misadventures throughout this film. I wouldn't say it's very much structured. Even though it is very loose, it feels like very planned out and thought out and perfectly articulated. It's very charming, and I really want to follow her character. I feel like she's almost my friend. I was sad to see the movie end. Frances Ha, even though it's showing modern New York and, you know, these modern kids, showing that world, but not in an ironic way and not in an irritating way, it's both stylized and realistic, but it manages it both very well. I've seen all the movies that are influencing it, and I'm fine with it, and I really love it, and I think it has kind of a really endearing spirit and a lovely spirit to it. And a film that I really love the character, and after I left, I liked walking around New York and kind of swimming in the ambiance of New York, because it was like this movie, and it made me kind of love New York just for a little bit, even if the magic is totally gone from New York, even though it's total crap and it's movie magic. But it was a fun magic little ride to go on for a little bit. It was fun fantasy, and it kind of reflected the fun fantasy that shooting a movie in black and white in this day and age is. So those were the films I consider to have been the best films I saw in the summer of 2013. Now there are a couple runners-up. One runner-up I quite enjoyed, wasn't released theatrically at all, it was released on video, is the WNUF Halloween special. One of the better times I've had watching a movie in the whole summer. That film, its concept and the fun of it, it definitely deserves a runners-up, and it's absolutely the best horror film I've seen this year, or at least so far, you never know. I wanted to highlight blockbusters that I liked, and these are really the blockbusters I liked the most. I didn't like a lot of blockbusters this year. I was kind of disappointed. I feel like last summer was a lot better, but so the best summer blockbusters I liked, and these were kind of big, populous, huge blockbuster hits, most of them costing more than $100 million. One of them didn't. But the four that I really liked were The Heat, Fast and Furious 6, The Wolverine, and Pacific Rim. And I thought they were the most enjoyable and the most fun and audience pleasing, and I think that's something you should have from a blockbuster. So I've given you 10 films really that I like, so you almost get kind of a top 10. But I hope you check all the films, my top 5 best movies of the summer out. I'm going to have more reviews coming out. Obviously my workflow is a little different because I have less free time than I used to, but I'm gonna still try to put out as many reviews as I can. So we'll see how that all works out. I'll probably do an update video kind of thing in October. You guys who watch all these, you know, I thank you very much for your support. I hope to see you again next summer, and I hope you enjoyed this compilation best of summer 2013 video. So if you saw a movie in the summer of 2013, then comment below. Maybe tell me what your favorite movies of the summer were, or what you thought of my favorite movies, or you know, how much I suck or something like that. And subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you later.